About a week ago I downloaded Tinder. Let's see what the hype is about, right? After days of not using the app, I came back to a good amount of matches, like 20 or so. One caught my eye though. The girl had messaged me first. The others didn't. That's usually a good sign, right? It was a simple hey. Hi I sent back. A couple minutes later she sends me her Snap contact card and says she's on there more than Tinder. I figured what the heck. I add her and she accepts it. She snapped me first. I opened her Snap. She was a very cute girl, cuter than her Tinder pics. We had talked for hours the first day. Later that same night we had talks about meeting up and what we should do. I recommend we go out to eat, but she said that's boring. I've been on plenty of dinner dates. How about a hike? To be honest, I'm not the fittest guy, and a hike didn't really fit into my list of activities. But Simp Me of course said, yeah, that sounds fun. Where should we hike? She highly recommended David's Hill. It's a very popular attraction in our area, filled with park, and if you walk down the field is where the hike trail starts. She really insisted we go at 5 p.m. as many people aren't in the park. I felt a little uneasy about the time. I wanted to go earlier, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. We snapped more. I then got a feeling of, what am I doing? It's too soon to go on a date. We've only been talking for 2 days and a hike with a total stranger didn't fit my narrative. I took longer to respond, hoping she would get the hint and leave me on red. But nope. She snapped me a couple of times when I didn't respond. Nothing creepy, just snaps of random things. I would reply with one word, seeming uninterested. It's a scummy thing to do, but I guess I wasn't about it. She later took the hint, as she left me on red for 5 hours. Then one day, I deleted her after that. She had matched with me on Tinder, but later that week, I was scrolling through Facebook to see a news article about the same girl. This is sad. Apparently she was kidnapped from a different state. She doesn't even live where I live. And as for the 2 guys, well, they were involved in human trafficking. She was found and rescued after a failed attempt to lure another woman. These were their tricks. I just imagined how I could have easily been kidnapped or worse. I've since deleted the app, and for anyone reading or hearing this, please be careful. I had an Instagram account where I mostly posted my artwork. I didn't do too much on there, but I'd use it just in case I was bored or felt like showing strangers my art. One Thursday evening, I just got a notification from my Instagram, but it wasn't a comment, it was a message request from someone. I didn't usually talk to strangers online because creeps, but I felt lonely, so I gave whoever this person was permission and almost immediately sent me a text saying, "Hey, I love your artwork," with 5 heart emojis. I shrugged and replied with, "Thank you." Just when I was about to go on another app, they messaged me again 2 times. One was a text that said, "This is me, by the way," and the second photo was of an overweight woman in her mid-30s, laying on her bed while holding her phone and smirking. Presumably the stranger messaging me? I was 16 at the time and knew about online predators, but she looked friendly enough, right? Looking back, adding this woman to my friends list was the most stupidest thing I ever did. Later that night, I was home alone while my mom was picking up my nephew. I was watching The Incredibles when I suddenly got a message from the woman. I opened it up to my shock. It was a picture of her completely naked with her cellulite-ridden butt way close to the camera. Then in seconds, a text appeared saying, "Like what you see?" with a winking tongue emoji. I was both angry and revolted. I'm a girl, forget to mention, and this lady expected me to like this? F no. I just blocked and reported her, with that picture still burnt into my head. After I finished watching the movie, I was about to put another one when I got another message request. The only words I thought were, "What the F does she want now?" As I realized that it was a new account that said, "Why the F did you block me?" in caps with 2 angry emojis and 1 crying emoji. I just ignored the request this time. Minutes later, as I was watching the movie, I got, again, another message request. I opened it up and my stomach turned. It was a photo of my backyard and me in the living room, along with the text, "I can see you." I looked from the living room to the sliding glass door, and there she was, hiding in the bush and still naked, only illuminated by the moonlight. I could have sworn she was holding a kitchen knife. I ran up to my room, hid in the closet, and called the police and my mom. As I was calling 911, so many thoughts were running a marathon in my head, like, how did she know where I lived? My anxiety got worse when I heard the sliding door open. I forgot to lock it, I thought to myself, and I prayed quietly. As I heard footsteps on the stairs, almost closer to my room, I thought this was the end, when to my relief, the sound of sirens came and I heard the woman running down the stairs in a hurry. I then heard the satisfying sounds of the cops tasering her. A week later, me and my mom received an update from the police. Turns out that this woman was a sex offender who had a mental issue. Not only that, she had been stalking me for a while now, and I didn't even know it. She was given 3 years, and that's all I know. Since then, I set my Instagram on private, and my mom took my phone away, which probably serves me right for almost getting myself killed. I usually hope people with a mental illness get help, but in this case, the lady won't get my sympathy. The rain fell as I waited for him to show up, anxiously drumming my fingers on the countertop. I lit another cigarette, chain smoking, but sue me, I was under a lot of stress. I had spent weeks trying to ignore the sounds coming from my basement. I couldn't sleep from all the noise coming from down there. I couldn't focus on anything. More scratching came from behind the door, made me fumble the cigarette I was holding, the end of it falling onto the ground. Cursing, I relit it as I stopped onto the ember, out onto the linoleum. The exterminator was late. He was making me wonder if he was going to show up at all. Just as I was thinking this, a knock sounded from the door. I ran to it, peeking through the peephole to see a young man standing there. He wasn't what I was expecting. He didn't look like any exterminator I had ever seen before. He was well dressed, tall and thin, clean-shaven with a slight smile on his face as he stood waiting. I pitched the door open, eager to get this over with. "Hello, ma'am. I believe you called me the other day." The voice was smooth and cheerful. "Yes, I was, referred by someone who swore by you," I replied, gesturing for him to come inside. He nodded, stepping into the entryway and surveying his surroundings. His smile faded slightly as he glanced toward the basement door. "I take it this is where the problem is," he asked, striding over the door before I answered. "Yes, I can't even describe what it's like down there," I stammered. "No problem. I'll just go ahead and take a look," he chuckled, his good-natured face returning to a warm smile. I smiled back. "Can I get you anything first? Water, tea, coffee?" I inquired, starting toward the kitchen. "Well, maybe just some water, thank you." I shuffled over, grabbing a glass and turning toward the faucet. "What did you say your name was again?" "My name is Mark, ma'am. Glad to meet you." "Call me Hannah." I smiled at him again, handing him the glass. His hand brushed against mine as he took it from me, tipping it back and draining it quickly. He was growing on me quite a bit. I took the glass from him. He walked over the basement door, taking a small amulet from his breast pocket. I tried to get a good look at what it was. Would you mind if I come with you? I blushed, hoping I didn't sound too eager. Ma'am, this could get pretty messy. His cheerful tone was gone, now replaced by a calm determination. I'm just curious. I wanted to know how you do it all. He pulled open the door and held it, waiting for me to catch up. We descended the steps slowly. I could see him looking at every corner before taking each step. Ah, I see you've been using salt. A lot of people seem to think this will help, he murmured. He walked towards the walls, placing his hands against them. He recoiled like he had been burned. I tried not to flinch. Ma'am, is there any history of violence or maybe some kind of dark act being performed in this room? He asked, his voice rising in pitch. I didn't answer, keeping a safe distance from the walls. Mark was beginning to get a sense of how haunted this place was. If he didn't, I wouldn't have considered him to be a medium at all. I had called him to help me with the spirits that were kept within the house. The last few nights I had heard them howling and screaming, begging to be released. Sometimes they would shake the whole structures as they tried to scare me into opening the door and letting them free. Mark had come highly recommended as a medium who could release lost and tortured souls. Jokingly referred to himself as an exterminator when I called. The joke wore out pretty quickly in the face of the actual danger this house held. He was now sweating, nervously trying to get a read on whatever was down here with us. I think that something is seriously wrong here. His voice quivered while his fingertips ran the length of the wall. What do you mean? I whispered. He was shaking, barely able to keep his balance now. He looked at me with terror in his eyes. The howling had started. Ghostly voices began calling out to us, some screaming like they were being ripped apart. Mark stumbled, falling to the dusty floor. Are you alright? I moved towards him, ready to bring him back to his feet. He scrambled to get away from me. What did you do to me? His words were slurred, his breathing erratic. I finally let the smile I had been holding back creep across my face. Ah, you are all the same, you psychic show-offs. I cackled, grabbing him by the collar. I pulled him off the ground and gazed at his eyes. They were barely open. The drugs I had put in his water had taken their full effect, rendering him immobile. I knew he could still hear me though. Mark, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I can hear the spirits too. I could hear them loud and clear. I yelled as I shook him, his eyes catching a brief glimpse of me before rolling back again. I dragged him over the center of the room, drawing a circle around him. The spirits were in uproar, begging, waiting. I always like to work them into a frenzy before I let them have their taste. It's all a part of putting on a good show. I pulled a dagger out from the holster around my waist, savoring the scream and the wailing coming from all around me. Faces shone through the wall, warping the concrete momentarily as they pushed their way towards their meal. Finally, I sank the blood into Mark's throat, releasing them from their bondage. A couple dozen tortured souls burst through the walls, swarming Mark's body. They lapped the blood from his neck, from the floor, tearing his limbs off to let more flow, greedily consuming all they could obtain. I sighed happily, watching my beloved pets doing what they loved best. As they finally drained Mark's body of his fluids, they flew past me, swooping down and giving me goosebumps as they returned to the walls, full and content. Mark had been a large meal for them. The more spiritual the victim, the more satisfied they were. They would stay quiet for a long while now. I made my way back upstairs, placing the amulet around my neck and knowing the next time they were hungry, I would hear Mark's voice howling along with the rest.